on to the final game, which is Miguel's game of choice and the game he's covering for the Independent there this week. So we'll take a look at the betting. Chelsea are currently available at 1.72, AC Milan 5.4, the draw available at 4.1. Both teams to score is currently Chelsea Milan, yes, 1.91. And the handicap, Milan getting a 3/4 of a goal start at 2.04. And the goal line is 2.5, slightly shaded towards the over. So yeah, Miguel, take it away. I did have a question on Chelsea's game at the weekend with Graham Potter. I was quite surprised. I know Cucurella was injured, but I was surprised they went with a back four. I don't know if that was purely for that game. I listened to Potter's quotes after. He was not giving too much away there. It sounds like it's going to be on a game-by-game basis until maybe he gets a grip with this Chelsea team.
Yeah, that's kind of the uncertainty with Chelsea right now, isn't it? That we don't really know. It's going to take us a fair bit of time till we know what Potter's fully about with this team, how different it will be to Brighton, because he has the benefit of a higher quality of player, what he can do. And I mean, it's, I suppose, the temptation with Chelsea, given their start to the season and given Potter's own history, almost, you're thinking, should almost go for 1-1 in every game, particularly games that are kind of in the balance of that. Came close to it on Saturday. But I do wonder whether the manner that they won on Saturday does change things a little bit, because there's all that kind of the emotional momentum that comes from victories like that. And that feeling, even though they weren't brilliant, that feeling of vindication. I mean, that's ultimately, I suppose, what solidifies teams around managers. It's late winners. It's kind of victories in those sort of situations, especially this early into a managerial regime. And of course, this game is made all the more acute because it's not one of those Chelsea can go into kind of that, that classic Champions League game that the big clubs have become accustomed to over the last decade, where they're not really, all right, they're big matches against kind of classic opposition, but they're not really high pressure games because you know they're usually going to do enough. Chelsea don't have that luxury at the moment. They have to go in, they pretty much have to get a result. A defeat would certainly be a disaster. So I think it makes this one very hard to call, but because he doesn't have a system exactly as he wants it, because of kind of, I suppose, ongoing issues of personnel uncertainty, and because maybe it seems it's coming together in attack a little bit. I think it was promising for them that Aubameyang got off the mark. I think both teams to score. I think I'd nearly lean towards a narrow Chelsea win, but I just don't know enough about Potter's Chelsea yet to actually kind of to fully go with that.
Yeah, Mark, for you on Chelsea Milan, you're liking goals here.
Yeah, I mean, I was relatively keen on Milan +1 on the Asian handicap, but I've sort of landed on both teams scoring instead. Obviously, a lot to play for in this pool, but I think Milan's injuries has to be taken into account. There's been a relatively big move on Chelsea since the weekend in the aftermath of beating Palace, where I didn't think they were hugely convincing. I think defensively they looked fairly vulnerable at times, particularly in the first half. But Milan, in their win away at Empoli, dramatic win, lost Calabria, the fullback, lost Kier and Salamanca's as well. They're all three confirmed out. They're already missing their goalkeeper, Mike Maignan, Teo Hernandez, the rampaging fullback, and Alessandro Florenzi as well. And there's doubts over Messias and Origi as well. So, I mean, Origi's not a first-choice starter at least. But what makes this tricky for Milan is the fact that they've got a limited squad for the Champions League anyhow, basically due to a lack of Italian and homegrown players in their squad. So they could be going to Stamford Bridge with 13, 14, 15 outfield players available to them, which is probably what's kind of shifting the market in Chelsea's favour here. But even still, I think there's enough ability, particularly at centre-half with Kalulu and Tomori, to put on a decent showing. You've also got the likes of Tonali, who's been really decisive over the past year. Giroud will be keen to make an impact against his old club. And Rafael Leao, who's basically one of the best players on the planet right now too. So De Ketelaere, who signed from Bruges, hasn't shown what he's capable of just yet, but there's a real player in there too. So I think Milan have got enough quality in forward areas to cause Chelsea problems, particularly if Chelsea do play front foot, knowing that they need this win with a trip to the San Siro in reverse next week. So yeah, I think Milan can get on the score sheet, and I fully expect Chelsea to do so as well, considering the problems that Milan have in terms of injuries and possibly fielding a makeshift defence. Defence was their sort of key strength last year, but they've only kept 2 clean sheets across Serie A and the Champions League so far this season. So you fully expect Chelsea to get on the score sheet, even if they do look like a bit of a work in progress under Potter. Took him a long time to get Brighton cooking. It should be remembered, really. He had a pretty much full season when a lot of people and dinosaurs in the media were sort of suggesting he should be removed from his role and Chris Hughton reinstated. But he's had very little time to work on the training pitch. Chelsea playing every 3-4 days, so it might take time until we see the real Chelsea kind of step forward. And I think that creates a couple of issues, really. So I do fancy Milan to get a goal here and cause some problems. They failed to score once this season and only twice away last season did they fail to score. They scored at Anfield. They scored at Atletico Madrid as well. So I wouldn't put it past them getting on the score sheet in what should be a really interesting game.
Yeah, interesting angles there. And Mark touched on the defence, Adrian. I guess you look back at the Palace-Chelsea game and the key moment in the game, Thiago Silva, if that is given a red card, we're probably having a different conversation. The narrative around Chelsea is a little bit different going into this game.
How was it not a red card? I mean, that was a really, really poor piece of officiating. It was a cynical foul, and yeah, they were 1-0 down at the time. They probably would have lost that game, and then they come into this one feeling in a very different kind of mindset. The pressure is on, isn't it? They really do need a result. Obviously, they've got to play the reverse one in Milan shortly afterwards as well. So this is huge for Chelsea, who don't keep many clean sheets at Stamford Bridge. Certainly, they weren't during the sort of latter weeks and months of the Tuchel regime. So that will give Milan encouragement. I'm a big fan of Rafael Leao as well. I think he's absolute class, and I think he can hurt this Chelsea team. But I agree with the boys. I would definitely lean towards Chelsea if we were to deviate from both teams to score, and that would be my first choice pick as well. If we were to deviate from it, I think I would go with Chelsea and over 1.5 goals, which I think is available at the right side of evens, 2.14. So that's something to think about. Just going against the both teams to score angle, just slightly, they haven't given many chances away, Chelsea, really. I was looking at the shot count against Palace. It was only 7. Against Salzburg in the Champions League, it was only 4. So in 2 games, they've only faced 11 shots. That's not too bad. That's pretty solid. And when you think about Potter's Brighton, they're always really, really hard to create chances against. So Potter and his structure, if he can get that working, I think he will fix the goals against column fairly quickly. So it's just something to consider. Another reason to maybe back Chelsea here is Milan's record in England is absolutely awful. They've won 1 of 20 away games in European competitions in England. It was all the way back when you were probably playing Kiss Chase in the playground, Dan, in 2005, Old Trafford. So I bet you won't even remember that. So, it's a long, long, long time since Milan came to England and won in European competitions. So I think Chelsea should feel quite confident going into the game. But yeah, all in all, I think it'll be a good game where both attacks cause the opposition defence problems.
The memories came flooding back when you mentioned Milan in England. Do you remember Arsenal were 4-0
down? I thought you were going to say with a Kiss Chase there, yeah?
No. I was going to say Milan.
An unusual reference in this.
Milan were 4-0 up against Arsenal. Arsenal brought them back to the Emirates. Arsenal got 3-0 and Robin van Persie decided to chip the goalkeeper instead of banging in the net and would have made it 4-0.
Oh, yeah. I remember that. They've not enjoyed their trips to this country. So, but yeah, no, I think we're on the right track here with both teams to score or maybe a Chelsea win.
Yeah, we'll lean both teams to score then and lock it in. And 1.91 is pretty decent price there.